Hey everybody, welcome back to East Oak Studio for another Painting from Life. Really excited about today. We're going to do something a little bit differently. We're going to be painting some floral arrangements, or one floral arrangements with arrangement with the three of us. So artists to an arrangement. So we're really excited though. Great, really excited about having you back into our studio space. As always, we are wanting to put this out for everyone to enjoy. Please feel free to ask us questions. We love this program because it allows for us to interact with our audience. So we love to know where you're from, what you're doing. If you want to paint along with us, there are reference images. Kelly should be uploading them very shortly. If you look down below in the details to this, you'll see that there is a link to the photo images. All you have to do is submit your email and you'll have access not only to this one, but all of the live streams prior. So if you ever want to paint along with us, you're welcome to. These are beautiful flowers from a local florist who I believe does these from indigenous plants or grows them here in Raleigh, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, she will be joining us a little later, and we'll make sure to put her Instagram tag in for everybody so that you have that. But without further ado, we're gonna start painting. Kristen is joining us today. This is her last week as an artist intern here at East Oaks. We are so sad to see her and her husband Christian go, but he's about to go to PA school and it's going to be an incredible time. So we're really excited about their future and wish them the best of luck and wishes. So, and then of course Alex and I will be painting on either side, and I'm going to get all the cameras arranged, make sure they're all looking good, and then I'll start with them. So, and today we're going to take less breaks because we don't have a model. So really excited about that.
Fun. Smells good in here. It's like perfume.
Bacon and flowers.
Bacon and flowers.
So take it. That's the
Miguel Martinez says, "Greetings from California."
Nice to meet you, Miguel, and I'm so excited you're with us, buddy. It's a little bit earlier over in California. I'm sure that it's beautiful sunny weather as normal. Miguel, I'm wondering, is this your first time joining us? If it is, we're excited. We're happy to answer any questions, or if there's anything you would like to, topic you would like for us to discuss for conversation's sake. We'll see how this angle goes. I might switch. Actually, I'm going to switch this angle.
And there's a JSJS Halo from WA, which I believe is in Australia.
We have a fellow Australian in our midst. Divya Melaleuca, make sure you're following her. A rising star in the art world, along with the rest of the ladies that are here. Caroline Nelson, and we've already talked about Kristen Yen. So, like I said, Kristen is going to be moving back to Florida. She's originally a Floridian.
Yep.
And it's going to be a sad day because we have really enjoyed having her and seeing her growth over this whole time. It has been an absolute blast. So, Kristen got her undergrad at Florida State University, right?
So I'll be going back to Tallahassee, which is where Florida State is, because as Louis said, my husband Christian got into the physician assistant program there. So it's bittersweet, but I know that this next season will have its own beauties. But yeah.
Yeah, it's true. That is true.
Marianne Inns says, was the floral arrangement done by a local florist?
Was, and I can't remember her name. Kelly, our project manager here, knew her because she also works in the wedding venue field. And so this is somebody they used, but she will actually, I think, be appearing and having a cameo appearance here at East Oaks sometime this evening. And I'll make sure to put in her Instagram tag so that if there is somebody local who wants to use them, you're welcome to. And they haven't, like I said, they have their own social media, and I think they ship all over the place. So I think it's safe to say that she's willing and open to having any business. You know, while I'm sitting here putting this on, I'm thinking of Richard Schmidt, and God rest his soul. What a wonderful, wonderful man, and you know, guy can paint the hell out of some flowers. So it's really cool to see all the people who have given tributes to him this past week. So I think all of us, even in this room, in one way, shape, or form, have been touched by his influence in some format. So,
Bruce asks, are there subjects like flowers you will only do one sitting for, or will you typically paint flowers in multiple sittings?
When I paint flowers, I typically paint them in multiple sittings, but this I might keep as a one sitting thing just to see how it turns out. If not, I think I might go back and look at some of the reference images of everything and see.
Yeah, I've never done it in one go. I mean, I've done color studies and things, but never like a full painting. So.
Yeah, same.
So this is fun.
But yeah, that's, I think for the most part, how most people do it. I mean, you've got the Richard Smiths of the world that are all a prima that can like make something awesome happen, but that ain't me.
Not me neither.
So we have Madeline at Mood Florist on Instagram and at moodflorist.com who made the arrangement tonight. She's based in Durham, North Carolina, and her username is spelled MOODFLEURISTE.
So there you go, everyone, and we'll make sure to like make a little printout of that on the actual like an overlay, so that if anyone wants that again, we can it'll be up there. It'll also be in the show notes. We'll make sure that it's available for you all in the show notes.
So, M. Barg says, what kind of equipment is holding up Kristen's SP? Wooden pallet, is it resting on a stand and held by a clip?
Yeah, so this is just like a metal tripod easel, and when you put the little clamps on it, these guys, it was casting a shadow, so we just decided to kind of improv and grab some clamps and put it down so that the shadow was a little bit more minimal. But yeah, this is not the typical setup, but it's the East Oaks way, so.
It is the East Oaks way, isn't it?
Miguel Martinez says, absolutely beautiful beach weather here. I love your live streams and I watch them all the time. By the way, finally got myself an Edge Pro and I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope you're able to go out there and paint the beach sometimes. We're actually, for the first time as an East Oaks family, going to go to the beach tomorrow. And we are pretty jazzed about it. We've all been working pretty hard here, so it's a well-needed break.
Christopher Baraclow asks, how do you usually use unbleached titanium dioxide by Michael Harding? I have been recommended to use it to mix my colors, but online it says it's used for undercoat.
I've never used it. Have you used it, Alex or Kristen?
Nope.
No, but I imagine, no, even if it says online it's for the undercoat, I'm sure you can just use it
Yeah, definitely.
as you would like a normal titanium white.
Yep, I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like there are really no rules to this. There are things that help the longevity of your painting, but for the most part, there's quite a few things you can do. But it's a great question, and I wish I knew the answer to that.
Kristen, I was wondering what some recent insights or things you realized when you were painting flowers, because you've done multiple and they've been done beautifully, so I was just curious what some things you've learned along the way.
It's funny because I feel like every time I approach it, I do it differently. So I wish I had like a tried and true method to it, but I think in my brain I just try to get down as much information as possible. And I think I'm learning a lot of flower painting is kind of faking it till you make it, because they change so fast over time. And so I'm learning to be flexible. And then just, I think the lesson I've learned here in totality has been use more paint. So that definitely goes for flowers, to get that, the volume of them. And they're so delicate, and so my brain automatically wants to just make everything thin. But I think you get more of a nuance or just like beauty to it if you use thicker paint, but do it in a way that's smart, which again, I'm still learning. So yeah.
Great question, though. I always have to keep telling myself about that too. Just use more paint. Travis Schlott, who I love his work. My work is nothing like his work, but I absolutely adore his work. And he would always say, you got to use paint to paint. And it's a simple thing, but it's like a reminder we all need. So. But I'm letting this be like my liberty to like try all sorts of stuff, like gather the essence of Richard Schmidt and Michael Klein in here and sling some paint.
Lisa asks, I feel flower painting is so difficult. Any general advice to begin and after? Thanks, Kristen, for the advice you just gave. Anything else?
It's been a while since I've done a flower painting, but I just remember how important it was to think about, because with flowers, there's all these little petals, so if you're kind of just squinting and just copying like light and dark shapes everywhere, it's going to kind of be a mess. And to really think about the big, large forms and grouping of grouping of lights, but if you really open your eyes, you see like all these different values when you kind of have to try and see the value groupings. And then when you do go into the subtle, like little petals, to be thinking about like their orientation to the light source.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hugely helpful. When in doubt, value, value. And something that it's just like it's a gear shifting thing for for me too. You kind of like want to like block in roughly like where things are going to go, and then you got to like shift gears to like thinking about value, and then like how do I start adding more detail into this, and then like once you've done value, which is like the most important thing, and then start thinking about like warm and cool natures to things. But I think one of the biggest things that has been helpful to know whenever I'm working on flowers is that typically they are a volume as an entirety. And that volume as an entirety, just like a cloud, has like a larger, more light-facing side, and it goes sort of in a form way to the shadow. And if you can get that sort of overarching feel, then you might have a chance of being a lot more successful with the piece. So typically people get so caught up in that one little flower that they forget about the whole. And we'll see, but I'm attempting to like work a little bit more like in the shadows and get sort of an establishment of what I want those to look like, and then working my way out to the lights.
So Jose Bazo asks, been painting flowers lately and enjoying it lots, but sometimes I will have a very powerful painting up until halfway, and then trying to add detail, it'll become too stiff. Any recommendations?
I would say that if it's become too stiff, the hardest thing I think for a lot of people is to realize that they can reverse their painting, and sometimes it requires some reversal. And the problem is that we don't want to paint over something that we've already spent so much time on. So sometimes what you've got to do is literally just bite the bullet and try to go back to an earlier stage and get a little bit more loose, and then and the way to do that for the most part is to use layers to your advantage, and layer on top of layer, or you can sand down and scrape in areas, and that actually adds interest, makes interesting things happen. So that would be something that I would probably suggest.
I found, I don't know if this exactly answers the question, but in my experience, the very first time I painted flowers, which was the first time I was here, the beginning's really fun and you get really loose and you put a lot of paint down, and I found that I do have to take that time to let the paint dry before I go back. I know it sounds really like self-explanatory, but you know, the flowers are dying in front of you and you feel its pressure to just keep going, keep going. And that's when it starts getting all like, I don't know, I always mess it up at that point when I don't just wait for the paint to dry. And so I think, I mean, at least if you're working from life, that can be something that sets you back a bit, in my experience.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Solid advice.
Alex, Jessica was curious why you started with the vase.
Well, I really just didn't know where I wanted to, like, what I wanted to paint. But I really liked kind of like this shadow, or this flower that's kind of in, this yellow flower that's in shadow touching the vase. And then, so I thought like, and then I thought if I start with the flowers and then the vase is accidentally not in the center, I don't think I would like that composition much, so I knew that that's kind of like my very solid thing that I could just put down and then kind of web out from. Yep.
I always feel like, I don't know if you ever watched Family Feud, but no matter what the person would answer, have y'all ever seen Family Feud? Either one of you?
No.
I think so.
It was a TV show that was really popular in the 70s and 80s. And it's like two families, and it's like they do a survey and ask 100 people. And it'll be something like, you know, what would you eat for breakfast? And then like the top 100 people would be like orange juice or pancakes and waffles.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, you try to guess, like, which one's the most popular one that people would say. Eggs might be the most popular, right? But sometimes, like, people are just, like, grabbing it out of midair because it's, like, a really hard one.
Right.
And they really don't know. But they'll just say the most random things. And always the people would be like, good answer, you know? And so I feel like every now and again, like, everything that y'all are saying, I'm like, yeah, that's a good answer. And I feel like I'm a Family Feud person. She's like, good answer. It was a long explanation for a joke that's now not funny because of it.
Good answer.
Good answer. Good answer. That's with like Steve Harvey or whatever.
Yeah, Steve Harvey does it now, yeah. And he makes that show so funny. You watch like the Facebook like highlights that they'll do on it, and it's like, oh, that's just so genius.
Bruce asks, can each person describe how they're approaching value in this flower painting?
Well, I'm approaching it with sort of like working my way from midtones outward. And I'm using the midtones to help me kind of create the drawing that I want. So that is kind of my approach at the moment. I'll tell you at the end of this session, or end of this, whether that worked well or not.
Go ahead.
Good answer. Good answer.
I put down like a kind of dark, the way I kind of start with values, but it's the same as color, is I kind of start with something that I feel like I can get right, like right up front, and then I start comparing off of that. So like under this, like this part in the vase is just like the darkest dark in the painting. So then I started with that, and then from that, like then to the flower next to it that's in shadow is just like a little bit brighter than that. And then like I look at the flower next to it that's like a little bit brighter than that, and then kind of just go up from
Creep your way
like
up.
my darkest dark. And yeah, I was just thinking when you said that I should probably put in a lightest light so that I don't go too bright, because right now I'm putting a lot of values here when this is actually quite middle tone when you compare it to like the brighter stuff up top.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I try to like put in my brightest bright first. So it's like all this white stuff up here. And then I think really what I'm focusing on mainly is just getting like almost like color study essence of like where everything is, and then kind of like adjusting from there. So in essence, I don't know what I'm doing.
In essence.
Jason Escobar says, for everyone, thoughts on the passing of Richard Schmid?
Man, what is there to say about a titan in your field? You know, he's one of those few people that I wish I got a chance to meet, and I never did, thinking I would, but just it never happened. So I'm really sad to see him go. I didn't know about him until later in life, because I kind of was this painter in a hole, not really knowing what was going on in the art world when there was actually a lot going on. But he was sort of my intro to that world when somebody introduced me to him, and then I was like, what? There's people doing what I do other places, you know, and he quickly was one of the first people I found out about. So I appreciate him being a trailblazer during a season when there was just literally nothing in the art world that was encouraging what we do. And he was just one of the few people, minus like Lack and, you know, I don't know, Andrew Wyeth, and just a couple of people out there that were actually either getting notoriety or grinding, you know. I think of Richard Lack as a grinder, but I think of like Schmid and Wyeth and those kind of people that were gaining some sort of level of notoriety because their contemporary feeling of their work was on par with what the public still would accept. So, but his book Alla Prima was one of the first art books I bought for the purpose of learning about color and how to paint.
Yeah, being a self-taught artist, whatever that means, like that was one of my main educational sources, was his book. And I remember he did a retrospective show in Colorado like 4 years ago or something, I don't know, quite a few years ago. And I had some friends in Colorado, so I went, and there was like this big line to meet him. And I waited in line, and I met him, and I was talking to him, and I asked him kind of what's it take to come paint with you guys at the Putney Painters? And then as soon as I did that, some lady came and said I was taking too long talking to him, and other people are waiting in line. You have to go now.
Oh no.
Wow.
So who knows what could have happened? But he was just like the nicest person, and just such a big influence on me.
Yeah, I mean, similarly to Lewis, like I did not know of anyone when I was in at Florida State as far as the just representational painting world goes. And my professor in college, actually, it was his last year, Noah Verrier, and he showed me a book by Richard Schmidt, and I was like, what? Like, people paint like this today? And that opened the door to like the Portrait Society and just the whole world. So it was one of those first artists I found out about, and yeah, I got to meet him at the Portrait Society. Same thing, very brief, but yeah, his book has been very inspirational, and his work, yeah, and just following along. It almost feels like you like know them so deeply,
Yeah.
and
It's one of those things where like I have to like catch myself that I did meet him, because there's something in your head that wants to like, you kind of imagined it so many times that you think you did.
yeah.
And so like I have to be like, I did it? No, I never did. You know, that's just how powerful of a guy he was. And just, you know, I think that one of the more influential things, if I could take anything to help like push his legacy, is that part of what has about him that inspires me is that he gave, and he gave, and he gave, and he gave. And sometimes he gave, and it'd be maybe to the wrong people who took advantage of him. And then there's some 90% of the time he gave and created some of the greater artists of today. And it didn't matter to him, he gave anyway. And there's something just incredibly powerful about that, that like, that's what everybody appreciates in his legacy, you know, is not only was he the nicest guy, but he just gave, he just was always there. So that's one of the inspirations behind why we do the things here at East Oaks, you know. And, you know, I think a lot of business people would just like be like, this doesn't seem logical, but we do it because I was once a person that wished somebody had given to me, and I had to go like seek it and find it, and I want to make that opportunity for other people, you know. And if it's not your thing, great. There's some, you know, I want to give to the people who want to receive. So that's part of his inspiration and his legacy, is it's living through me and East Oaks in the sense that we want to continue to carry that torch. Psst, y'all's line is good answer. Good answer. Good answer.
Jose asks, with really high chroma flowers in the light, how do you keep the value up without losing chroma?
That ain't a question for me, because I don't know. A lot of like what I'm doing right now is like just, I don't know. I'm not the most knowledge person in that, so you guys can answer.
I mean, a real simple thing that you don't necessarily think about is like using a extremely clean brush, dipping into extremely clean part of your like pile of white and extremely clean part of like, let's say, your cad yellow or whatever. If you're trying to like reach this really high chroma yellow that's also really bright. Because I'll be mixing yellows and greens and just think it's impossible for me to get that value. I just can't with the level of chroma. But then if I spend the time to kind of put out new paint and clean off my brush and then try with this fresh paint, it helps a decent amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kristen, Lisa has a question for you. She wants to know how you mixed your green background.
I took some raw umber and then brought in some transparent red oxide and ultramarine blue, and then I just shifted it using a little bit of white, and then I think I dipped into the ivory black. But again, sometimes I go on autopilot. I wish I was more knowledge in what I'm doing, but I do know that the first half of that is what I did. So hope that helps.
Good answer.
He's got my back.
That's it.
Kristen, Ian's workshop, go on autopilot.
Yes. That's how you know you're still a student. I don't think I could teach what I'm doing right now.
Vanna says, hello from Florida. I noticed that you all seem to be using short-handled brushes. Do you recommend this for floral paintings?
I like to use they're the Michael Klein brushes through Rosemary, just for the block-in. They do come in handy also when you're doing like detail stuff, but I just like the way they feel, and do they come in long, or are they only short?
Yeah, I think his are only short.
Yeah, they're only short, so, but they work. But typically I would lean more towards a long handle just because you can step back and get away from
Yeah.
your panel. But
Use what's comfortable, but yeah, the reason that people use the long handle often is because it allows for them to reach out and keep their eye back so that they can kind of do the big look. So,
Short handles are cheaper.
hey, I like that.
That's why I use them. I can just extend my arm if I want to.
there you go.
Gunbaru says, any recommendations with understanding the structure of flowers to help with construction? I find I tend to get overwhelmed with all the shapes.
Find the sphere.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, each one is a ball.
I mean, not all flowers have that, and so sometimes it's harder, but if they don't, you got to think about it as like these just like planes of like sheets in the air, and like which one's facing more towards the light and which one's more away from the light. So I know that part of me is being funny, but then there's also that side of me that's like, there's a lot of truth into how that, how real that is. It sometimes it's like, it's that hard and that simple at the same time.
How, with actually the sphere, how are you thinking about planes? Like, is that kind of like the, well, planes, like how's the petal facing the light, that kind of thinking?
Yeah. I think that it's, just like if you were to paint like a disco ball and you have all these like little planes that are on a sphere, a flower is just like really broken up disco ball planes, the ones that are more spherical. Like if you think about this flower right here or this flower up here, all the petals are facing towards you, but as a whole, there's this spherical nature to it. There's so many like oblong spherical nature, things going on with these flowers. And there's other properties that are happening, but the hierarchy of the nature of the flower is that it is operating as a sphere. But then you have like these little blue flowers, and it's hard to see a sphere in those. Mm-hmm. And so those you have to like think more about like almost like planes that are their own entity. So I don't know if that was even any more clear, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Also have to be careful. This is things I'm like telling myself. It's not stay too long in one spot. Otherwise, like I get lost in time, and time just starts flying away. So, to kind of like, since I'm like working on all of these things at once, I want to make sure that I'm thinking about all of them at once too. Another thing to think about that like I'm thinking about is this: once I get some of these like lighter moments laid out, is then to like go back into the shadow and like push the complement. So even more to help you make the particular flowers that you want to pop. So pop.
Do you also feel like at first, the question for everyone, like you're first thinking about shapes of color and then sort of going into more form thinking?
I first started in trying to like figure out what I wanted the composition to be, and then started laying down what I wanted the shadow color to be, and then which will in turn continue to change. But I wanted to first get something down that felt relatively right, and then go from there.
Yeah, I would say I am thinking like that, and then the form part of my brain is kind of on autopilot. So hopefully it's kind of, I'm putting down shapes of color that are decently accurate in relation to the light, but later on, once I've kind of placed everything, I will go more specifically thinking about form.
And there's some just incredibly wonderful colors. When you get used to painting people all day long and you're just working with one skin tone, to like have something that's got all this like crazy color going on, it's just like, wow, whole new experience.
Vanna Myers says, what kind of panels are you using, and what are your thoughts on design?
Well, the panel I'm using, and I think Alex is using, and Kristen, all of us are using ACM
Pantels.
It's one of those things where you're trying to articulate so much because you don't want the Southern to come out and be like, man, you got to sing a panel over there with the oil and on the gasoline, And so I'm trying to articulate, and then I find myself like articulating things that are don't have T's in them. So
You got to go to a special store for a pantel.
Yes, a special store for a pantel.
I'm wearing my pantels.
Your pantaloons.
My goodness.
But to answer is ACM panel, which stands for aluminum composite material, unique New York. So you can find it at any sign shop in your area. So all you do is just Google a sign supply store. There's tons of them. Even my small hometown that has a population of like 9,000 people has a sign supply store. And so call them up and say, I want some aluminum composite material. And one of the more common names, just like Band-Aid is for bandages, Dibond is a very common name for aluminum composite material. So, but if you ask them for that, then it's just, that's not the brand name, you know. And they'll be like, oh yeah, they'll have tons of it because almost all signs are used from it. It's super cheap, and it actually works quite well to paint on because it's a substrate that doesn't get affected by humidity, which is really great for your paint, the longevity of your paint. And it just so happens it's one of the cheapest things you can paint on. So it's like a win-win. It's one of the few things that you get to practice on that's still one of the best things you can do for your paintings.
And did you already say it's lead?
Oh, no.
Alkyd ground?
How about you go into that, Alex? Take it away, Alex.
And I think we're all painting on it's like Natural Pigments is the website. Rublev lead alkyd ground is like the ground that we put on top of the panels.
Lisa says, would you say the values are in a close range in a flower?
Ooh. No, I think like this is a great example that you could probably push if you're going to the bottom of the vase to the brightest flower in your piece. You could push the value pretty, you know, all the way to the highest part of your range, all the way down to the lowest, almost the lowest. You know, I wouldn't say you have to go to black here, but I do think that it probably helps to use a larger amount of the range of your value. So, because the more range you have, the problem with that a lot of people I think don't get taught is that you have your value range that you have to work with is vastly handicapped from what is in nature. So your brightest bright, your whitest white can never get nearly as white as what you're seeing in nature. And your black can only get very slightly close to the darkest dark in nature. And so because of that, you have to use those ranges and like work in this like compressed universe of what the brightest moment and the darkest moment in ratio to the value range that you have available to you. And so, and that's just something that's, I don't think, taught enough in sort of the conventional art field, but hugely helpful to know because you don't ever have to worry. You learn to paint according to your range that you want to create. So you can use an incredibly small range. Makes it more difficult, but you could do it. So
I will say something that not contradicts it, but it's the opposite, is that I feel like when people are painting one flower, they find all of these just too many little different value spots of like really dark and really light, and instead of kind of compressing the shadows and compressing the lights to create a more beautiful picture. But definitely in this whole bouquet, it goes from black to white, like 0 to 10.
I think that's a great point.
How would you go about compressing? Like, what's the best way to explain compressing with flowers?
I think I don't know if this is the best way to explain it, but I'm going to try my best here. The best thing I can tell you is that if you were to draw a ball and you were using a gray pencil, like a graphite pencil, like a number 2 pencil, you can only make that number 2 pencil go so dark. But if you were to draw a sphere, you would draw the darkest part that you could on the bottom, and you'd make a sphere go all the way up to the white of the paper, you know, and that would be your full range that you have to work with. Now that's very limited on what you could do if you were using charcoal. Charcoal goes a lot darker, and so your range becomes much larger. So a lead pencil has a compressed value range, and you're working within that compressed value range, like knowing that. So paint is no different, except the range is much larger than even charcoal. So, how was that?
Good answer.
Good answer.
Yeah, because it's like if you're able to create something with just a graphite pencil and make it fully dimensional, you can you almost think about compressing something like that, imagining that you don't have those darker values to even go to, and how would you handle it if you weren't allowed to have those?
Mm.
Julie Wells Hughes says, watching from Thailand, love that you picked a floral subject this time. For me, it takes so long to paint just one flower. So challenging to try multiples.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoy it. If we find that it's popular and people love it, we might do it again. Certainly fun. I'm enjoying doing this.
Yeah.
I don't know how awesome it looks on camera, but I'm having a fun time.
It feels a lot less stressful
It does.
than painting a person.
And we don't have to take breaks,
Yeah.
which is great because we get to maximize the amount of time we have available to us. I mean, we can take breaks if everybody's getting tired. I'm just saying that, like, we're going forever. We're going to midnight, folks. This is painting marathon, and you didn't even know it.
You didn't even know it.
I wonder if that sounds really bad, like ear jarring on the camera when I'm like scraping against this panel.
Tina says, thank you for the images. Can't wait to try my hand at painting flowers. I painted my own peony bush, so hopefully it blooms soon so I can get some practice from life.
Awesome.
Peonies are so hard to paint.
Yeah, Kristen's been painting peonies recently.
They're,
Tell us about it, Kristen.
well, I had painted a set of peonies once before, and for some reason, I don't know why, they did not open fast at all. And then these new peonies that I've been working on, they not only opened fast, but they changed color in like 3 days. So it just has been difficult.
That's crazy. Crazy.
So kudos to you. It's a fun challenge, though.
It's a fun challenge. And there's like very few flowers that are more beautiful in paint, I think, than a peony flower. So, good choice.
Ellen Brandon says, I thought that compressing values means that the values are very close together, like on a white flower.
It does. I mean, it's the exact same thing than what I was trying to say. So that's a great example that I need to do a better job of explaining myself. But you're right. A flower has a range that is very small from light to dark, just like a number 2 pencil does. It's only got a particular range. And so you're operating within that range. So there's like the limitations of your medium, going light to dark, but there's also limitations of, or control limitations you want to put on yourself of the subject matter, such as a flower, and making sure that, you know, you don't want to go the shadow be the darkest thing ever all the way to the light, especially if you have a background or like a copper pot like this has. You know, you want to leave range for that darker thing so that it can exist and the flower illuminates more. So great clarification, and thank you for responding so that we could make that clarification. Good stuff.
Alex, how are you like moving your brush with sort of mimicking the flower? So I could just start observing you. I know you've talked about that before.
If I was to describe it in a word, it would be smoosh.
Smoosh.
Look, get a close up on this.
Yeah.
Smoosh.
Smoosh.
Smoosh that pantle.
That was awesome. Hey, you should brand that. And that's trademark smoosh technique.
The smoosh. I feel like Rosemary has a brush called the smoosh brush. But yeah, I am kind of pushing the brush in so that it kind of feathers out and leaves this sort of organic but kind of sharp edge, because I feel like it mimics a petal, like how a petal looks. So I am trying to do that when I'm applying the paint. But all I can think to tell you is smoosh it.
Smoosh away. It's a hard technique to perfect, the smoosh technique. It's all in the wrist.
It's true.
Years of practice, toil. Alex has his black belt in smoosh technique.
Mm-hmm.
He's still working on his 3rd degree, though.
Vicky Sullivan, says hi from Australia. I was wondering if you mean that instead of painting what you see, you mix values slightly closer together. So the darks not quite so dark and lights more towards middle tones. I would love to understand compressed values more clearly. I find it is the most confusing thing for me to understand.
Well, I'll first say that it is, I mean, yes, you can make it up, but what we're saying is that just because we think we're copying what we're seeing doesn't mean we're accurate. And what we are actually seeing is a lot more compressed than we tend to paint it a lot of the times. Because I've taken a couple flower painting workshops, and a lot of what I saw like people were doing was, instead of compressing, they were doing the exact opposite and basically like turning up the contrast more so than what was in reality. But they were thinking that they were painting what they were seeing. So
that, or they felt like they were by pushing it, it would make it more powerful or evident, when sometimes it's just the opposite. Like creating more contrast loses illumination sometimes.
yeah.
So like you want something to be luminous, you compress it and then put something that's in the environment that's much darker versus like creating the high contrast in the thing itself. And so that's just a riff off of what Alex is saying, because I think that's incredibly true. It's just a pitfall of art making when you are starting out.
And like if I look, like if you look at the reference images from my point of view, I'm sure it's in everyone's, but the peony in the top right, if I kind of squint at it, that whole top like bushel of petals, when I squint, almost just looks like one value.
Mm-hmm.
But if I open my eyes, I could see like 50 different values, and I would be more likely, if you know I wasn't experienced in thinking about it, to just really dip far into my darks and far into my lights and just push it too far. But then if you then you start to compare it to the rest and it falls apart, I guess. But
That's good.
and I think that's what I learned a lot from, because first I learned very alla prima thinking, and now I'm thinking more kind of conceptual form thinking. And one of the main things that I learned from Richard Schmid's book is kind of like squinting shows you the compression that is actually happening in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's a good answer.
Slow clap.
I can sign off now.
For Alex, you are working over the background without altering it. Whenever you make a mistake, which is the best way to get the background clean?
Let me think. Well, I probably, like, I think some of the stuff in the, well, it's all drawn wrong. Like, it's definitely not perfect at all. But, like, these petals here are touching the vase when I'm looking, and they like are clearly kind of spaced away from the vase. So either they're wrong or the vase is wrong, and I'm either going to keep it wrong because I'm trying to kind of have this look of just kind of alla prima painted on top of just the wash, or I will, you know, maybe try and wipe it out a little bit with my paper towel, and then even maybe try and mix a color that's the exact same as the ground behind it, and try and be clever and make it look like was, you know, not painted, but it was just the background. There's no like good way though. If it was just I actually painted it what it was, I would just take that background color and just change it, but I'm trying not to do that. So I'm trying to be more careful to get it right the first time.
Tina asks, do you all plan to work back into these paintings once tonight's session is over?
I think if it's worthwhile, I will.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
If I like the direction it's going, and I think that it could have potential of being beautiful, then yes. That's my pacemaker. Hold on.
He's getting worked up.
Getting worked up. It's all this flower painting, man. It's so exciting.
Vicky Sullivan, who is the lady from Australia, says, beautiful explanation. I feel better now. So we just go for what we see. Great, thanks so much for going deep with the answer. Getting back always helps me see tonal values best.
Awesome.
And then Millie Guthrie says, do you suggest that to try to practice different kinds of subjects to become a better artist all the way around when you are learning?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's so there's so many like mysteries to painting that reveal themselves in different forms when you do variety of things. Because some things, say I was painting a sculpture and it was made of marble. I would only learn to paint a certain way because I was painting marble, to make marble look like marble. But if I also painted a metallic sculpture, the ranges of value and how you should control it to make it look real are just totally different. And so, you know, but then if you paint somebody from life and they move around and you have to like conceptually learn how to like create things in your mind, all of those things like help you achieve what you're trying to, like different properties of paint, you know. So, yeah. Anybody else want to add to that?
What was it?
Yeah. Does painting different subject matters actually help you improve painting versus... That was the question, correct? Yeah.
I think so, for sure. Yeah. I don't know what else to say on that.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yep.
Let me think about it. Yep.
Yeah, there's been times where I've set up a painting and there's been subjects that I'm like, once I go to paint, I'm like, whoa, I have not spent enough time painting this kind of thing. I thought I just learned how to paint anything I see, but this has its own particular challenges to it. So yeah, definitely. Because if you just paint flesh all the time, it's gonna probably be a lot different when you try and paint other stuff.
Would you also say that like you sort of have to tap in, you know, you could spend a long time painting a face which requires a bit of rendering, but then once you start painting nature or clothes, you sort of have to tap into more, you know, a different type of painting and being aware like of that.
Yeah.
Like you would paint a flower differently to how you would paint a face type thing.
Mm-hmm. Just like, I mean, to show that example, like exaggerate is like a tree. You obviously would not paint every leaf on a tree. So there's a different way to go about painting that.
So, I do believe we have a guest who has arrived. So we'll have to introduce, I believe this is our florist. And she came over to check out what we are doing on this live stream and to give a shout out to her and what she's doing. So, hello, how are you?
I'm great.
Good, good. So have a look around if you like. And also, we do have all of her information right on there. We're gonna like make sure to put it in our show notes about your floral arrangements. If you want, you can go sit over there and you can tell us a little bit about what you do. And there's a mic over there with Divya and Caroline. And I'd love to ask you a few questions about what it is you do.
Sure. Wasn't expecting.
Yeah, well, welcome. You're now our new star.
Well, yeah, my name's Madeline, and I'm an event florist. And
Also odds and ends kind of florist.
So, one thing that Kelly told me about you is that you are also in a professional in the sciences. Is that correct?
Yeah, I work in a lab that studies agricultural samples.
Oh, awesome. So is that with NC State?
No, it's for the state of North Carolina.
Oh, sweet. Very, very cool. So it's still in the horticultural field.
Yeah.
Awesome. Which do you love more? Do you love arranging flowers more, or you like that position, or are they equal and feed two different sides of you?
They feed the two different sides, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, sometimes, I'm sure as you guys know, it's
Oh,
off the cuff. So, and it's a lot of work, obviously. So.
what do you think is the most challenging thing of that? Do you grow all your flowers, or
No.
do you source them?
No, just the peonies and the arrangement are from our garden.
Oh.
They're actually from my mom's friends. Dug up the root ball and gave it to us when we moved into our house. And it takes peonies about 3 years to establish before they bloom.
Yeah.
And so these are 3 years going now, and they just keep getting bigger and more beautiful.
This really is incredible.
Most of the flowers actually came from weddings, so this is a compilation of 3 different weddings over the past 2 weeks, plus the peonies. So.
We're grateful to have them. It's a beautiful arrangement. Your husband helps you, is that right?
Yes, he receives the flowers and delivers them. Yeah, when I'm at my paying job. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I love it. Very cool. How long have y'all been in Raleigh? Have y'all been here a while?
I moved back. I went to the School of Science and Math in Durham, and then went to college out in Colorado, and then we moved back here. That's where we met, and we moved back here in 2013. And he was getting his master's in writing, and yeah, now he works for the Sun magazine.
Did you where did you go to school in Colorado? Where?
Colorado State.
Colorado State.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, we deeply appreciate this floor arrangement.
Yeah,
Hopefully
thank
we
you.
can make something look beautiful from it. So at least that's be the idea. You're welcome to stick around and hang out. You can ask us questions and about what we're doing. And, if you want to go on Instagram Live on your feed or something, you're welcome to do that. So, but we're excited you're here.
In person.
Yeah.
It looks amazing on YouTube. We were watching it before we came over. The quality is really good.
Very cool. Well, so we have people that join us from all over the world, and so they can get to ask questions, and it really is a blast because it allows for us to reach our audience in ways that we wouldn't be able to do normally otherwise. But let's see. I've got that figured out. I think I might start working on these 2 flowers.
There's this point in flower painting when it's like, okay, things are blocked in.
Yeah.
Now what?
Now-
It's like, oh,
Like,
okay.
Guys.
I didn't think I'd get this far.
Yeah. It's almost like, all right, it's where I want it to be. Now I'm going to have my assistant finish it out.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline?
Louis?
I want to push the background just a touch more so that I can avoid painting any detail for the longest as I can here.
Time isn't.
Do y'all want to take a break?
So like an hour.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm good if y'all are good.
Okay, it's up to you guys.
I'm down to keep on going, and I think our audience appreciates it too. So,
Yeah, I just needed to make sure there wasn't somehow 15 minutes left or something.
yeah,
How long is there
I
left?
can never trust.
we have 6 more hours.
Good, good.
And everybody's like, "Whew, good, all right." Might actually make something here.
Natal asks, could each of you talk a little about one flower painter that you like? I love Fantin Latour. Who do you love in this subject?
Ooh, well, Fantin Latour is like loving Rembrandt, because in the best of ways. There's all of us, I think, have a huge love for Fantin Latour. It was funny because Kristen was telling me a few days ago that Michael Klein just named his dog Phantom, and she was like, "Dadgummit, he beat me to it."
I want to
So,
name my cats Latour and Lepage,
that's
but
awesome.
I guess I'll just have Lepage. Think of another one.
So, so yeah, but short answer, yes. I think I also like. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now.
Bunker?
Angels.
Oh.
He paints the angels. And
Abbott Thayer.
Thayer.
Oh.
Thayer has some roses he did that I still to this day I think are one of my favorite flower paintings of all time. Just so gorgeous. If you haven't seen it, it is at the National Portrait Museum in DC, and you got to go check it out because they're awesome.
Dave Story says, "Looking good, Lewis."
You say Dave Story?
Yes.
And you said what? Looking
Looking
good?
good, Lewis.
Oh, Dave. I went to high school with Dave. If this is the same Dave Story, because I'm sure there's another Dave Story out there, but if this is the Dave Story I went to Culver with,
He said, what?
that's awesome. It's good to hear from you, buddy.
Marco Fontolan says, Alex's painting reminds me a lot of Travis Schlatt.
Thank you. That is definitely a compliment. Yeah, Travis Scott is just so good at not touching his brush marks
Yeah.
and making it look complete and beautiful.
Louis, were you at GCA with Travis Schlatt? Because you mentioned he said something before.
I was not. But he definitely came around and he did like a workshop or two when he was in town. He was living in Paris at the time. His wife is from Paris, and so they live a decent amount of their time over there, and then they come back because I think they also have a New York spot. So when he was in town, we hung out at GCA a couple of times, talking and shooting the breeze. But no, that's just like one of the famous things that people repeat a lot at GCA. But he's a really nice guy.
Lisa Zakua says, how do you keep flowers from looking fake?
I think when you render every single petal exactly form every petal out, I think it can end up looking a little bit fake because there's this, they seem static, but they're alive and, they're moving, and so, and they kind of fall open, and so when you just kind of carve out every single one without leaving any loose edges or anything like that, I think it can look a little bit fake, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
That's actually a really great point. Very smart answer, because I think that what a lot of people think is that our eye sees, when we look at something and focus in on it, that we see just the detail, when in actuality we have a large peripheral that is out of focus, and just a small amount that's in focus. And so things that actually feel more natural sometimes are when you don't render everything fully out. It also helps you make better decisions about what is not only important by when you're squinting and making decisions that are abbreviated, because you're thinking about the hierarchy of what's more important. So, yeah. Go for it.
Kind of going off of what she said, there were many life cycles of flowers and the bud, the opening of the bud, and also the summer, the flowers are starting to fall off. And if it's a faux flower, it tends to only be kind of one shape
Mm-hmm.
and one variety.
That's great.
So I try to capture that.
Yeah. The beauty in that asymmetry, too. Great answer. Were you mic'd on that? You got to be mic'd on that.
Yeah, we did.
No one would have been able to hear that. You got to go over there and put that in the mic.
She's like, oh no.
She's like, oh man.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Talk loudly. Not too loudly with that, Lena. To answer the question about making the flowers look real, the flowers, you know, they're, like she was saying, they're alive. So they start as a bud, they get more open and open to the point where they start losing petals and die. And I don't know if you can kind of see in the center, there's a yellow flower where the petals are just about to fall off. And I tried to put flowers in there like that so that it adds movement, it adds, you know, he was saying asymmetry, and it kind of makes it feel more real, whereas fake flowers just kind of feel, they're kind of one note in that way.
Marco asks, best ateliers / academy to attend nowadays.
Here. Just kidding.
Yeah, just show up.
Well, I owe a lot to my alma mater, Grand Central Atelier, and I still think that they're one of the better schools for learning form and figure and structure. So they're incredible at what they do. They do it so well. So definitely a shout out to them. Who else would you say, Alex?
Well, yeah, I would definitely have GCA at like high on the list. I mean, the only other place that I would want to go to is the what's it called? The Repin Academy, but it's the Imperial Academy in Russia. I really like how I feel like they're kind of like learning to compose, and there's doing multi-figure things, and they're doing very large canvases, and very structural about the anatomy, and yeah, I would just love to spend some time there.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let's all go.
Yeah.
We'll take East Oak Studio on tour. Rachel Parsonett will show us the way. She goes to Russia all the time. So, shout out to Rachel. Woo! Talk about a prolific painter. If you don't follow Rachel Parsonett, you should. That girl cranks out paintings so quickly. So, it has such a unique identity in her work. You know it's her work every time you see it.
I guess speaking of Rachel and landscape painting, do you guys like plein air painting?
You know, I would say out of all the paintings that I've done, plein air painting is one of the harder things I've ever done. So it's quite a challenge and a lot of fun, but it is very difficult. But every time I've done it, I've loved it. I just don't do it that much because I'm too busy than doing commission work and stuff.
I've actually never plein air painted.
What? You should go.
I know.
Bring your stuff tomorrow at the beach.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Teach me the fundamentals of seascape.
Yes, fundamentals of seascape. Shameless plug.
Yeah, I mean, I love landscape painting, but it is the hardest subject for me. And I would love to be really good at it because it's just so enjoyable to be outside. Painting the landscape is just so fun.
Ty Strickland said, I was wondering how to find my art market with realistic painting. I'm in Houston and I'm having trouble finding a realistic art market.
A realistic art market in the sense of realist painters, or a realistic art market in the sense that people who take it seriously, you know. I'm assuming that you mean people who are interested in realist work. What do y'all get from that? Same?
Yeah, and probably both.
Yeah.
Realistically?
Painting that takes it real.
Realistically, probably both. So I would say, well, one thing I know that I believe Grant Perry is in Houston. If I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think if there's any other painters that are in Houston. So, you know, they're definitely there, and in fact, I think that the South has more appreciation for realism painting than the North does, than the Northeast especially. Mm-hmm. So, all that to be said is, I think that it's more about knowing where to look than saying that it's not there. You know, because there's a lot of people in the world. And the greatest thing on the planet right now is the fact that you can market yourself pretty quickly for free on social media. It's been a better time to be a painter, in my opinion, because if your work is good, people will follow. It's just how it works. But you just need to make sure that your work is up to par. That's, I think, the more important thing to think about. What does everybody else think?
I don't know that area. I've actually never been there. But I always recommend going to the ARC website because they have so many resources that, especially for like ateliers and that kind of thing, that you can search your area. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know of anything really in that area.
Yeah, it's interesting because like an art market, it's just like this is the only time I've been around people who are also like, you know, also artists or like around me. Everything else is just like, the market has been somewhere else and you just kind of send the work there.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Which touches on like your point about the internet and marketing yourself that way. But other than that, I've just always been painting alone and up until this point.
Yeah, I will say that unless you can find yourself an artist community, this can be an incredibly lonely profession, and it is worth making sure that you seek out community. I painted for 12 years by myself, and I'm an extreme extrovert, and so I would have to find ways to satisfy that side of me outside of the painting world. But once I found, you know, really got inspired to create more of an artist community, it truly has been such a game changer as far as holding you accountable, keeping your skill level high because you're inspired in an inspirational way. You feel competitive because the person next to you is working so hard and making such beautiful work. It makes you want to work as hard and make as beautiful a work.
Oh, thanks, Louie.
You're welcome. It's true. It's true. Every single person here inspires me. We were looking at Caroline's work today, and she's working on this. She just finished like a peeled orange on her piece, and it's beautiful. She did such a great job on it, and it's inspiring to see that. So.
This is wonderful to watch.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad y'all are enjoying it.
It was cool to watch it on YouTube, but it's better in person.
Yeah, if only our audience could all fit into this little room.
Bruce asks, why is plein air painting difficult for a group that paints live portraits and flowers so well each month? Shape, value, color. Is it the light source changing quickly that challenges you?
That actually is a really great question. And that's partially the answer, is that movement happens so rapidly. If you think about it, the sun, the best time to paint outdoors, I've always been told, is around noon, because the sun moves the least amount. So you have about 30 minutes to 45 minutes where the sun doesn't quite shift that much in the shadow direction. But if you're not painting, say you decided you wanted to go out and try to paint the golden hours, it will blow your mind how fast everything changes so quickly. You know, clouds don't stay in the same spot. They move so fast. And what happens a lot is you chase the scene. And so like there'll be this beautiful cloud, and all of a sudden the cloud moves away, and you're like, oh, well, that's a beautiful cloud there. That's better than the one I had. So you switch your painting, and before you can even get it going, it's gone again too. So that's the hardest part, I think, is chasing the painting. And color is so difficult, because if you're lighting, you feel like you might have this like vibrant color going on, and you take it back inside and it looks all muddy and brown and dark. It's so discouraging sometimes. But Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, it's, well, definitely that. And then also there's just so much information. It's like a face is one face, and it has like, 5 features on it. And even this bouquet, like certain amount of flowers, but it's like a tree with 1 million leaves on it, and then, all this grass, and it's like, how do you simplify grass? It's like, so just so much stuff. So I think it's the art of like simplifying beautifully, which is like the hardest thing in painting, and one of the most beautiful things in painting. And there's just so much to simplify. And I feel like there's the least instruction for it. Or I haven't sought it out as much as like portrait painting and still life painting.
Andrea from Cary, North Carolina, asks, she wants to ask each of the artists a little bit about glazing. How would each of you proceed with it on a flower painting? Timing and different glaze mixtures or products they like. Thank you.
One thing, I was taking a flower painting workshop with Michael Klein like years ago, and it was kind of like when someone asked, how do you get something that's so high in value but also high in chroma? And it was like this really bright yellow flower, and I think he basically kind of painted the brightest part white, and then once it was dry, like a couple days into a workshop, he kind of glazed the yellow over it to create a yellow that's way brighter than you could just mix opaquely. So that would be one instance. But other than that, I don't glaze much myself.
Yeah. I mean, I glaze a decent amount, and that is, he just said one of the best properties I think you can use glazing for is to create really interesting high chroma spots. But also, if you paint heavily impasto at the beginning, you then can go back and work into that and like glaze into sort of the grooves of that impasto, and it makes the impasto even stand out even more, kind of like a sort of Rembrandt-y technique. And so it really, glazing can really be helpful there. It also helps, you know, I mean, Van Dyck would use it a lot to turn form. So like if something wasn't round enough, he would go in and like, you know, turn the rest of the arm in that way. So, so it can be used for that as well. Bar none, some of the harder things in painting is like actually talking and trying to concentrate on what you're doing.
Well, Lewis, I have another question for you. Aiden asks, would you talk about the window shading method, how it works, if you're familiar with it?
Yeah. Window shading method to other people, some people call it turning form in painting form. Basically, the idea is that you're conceptually, sculpturally creating this like three-dimensional object in space, but in your painting. And it's more of like a mental state of mind than it is like a technique, because the best way I can describe it is like, it takes a lot of practice, but you've got to think about like reaching through the picture plane, and you're using your pencil as a chisel, or like adding clay to this sculpture that's in space. And one of the better ways to train yourself on it is to do cast drawings, is what I usually help people learn from. But what it really is using this actual disability of your eyes called simultaneous contrast, which is our ability to create higher contrast to things that are next to each other. And it's to help us, I don't know, see predators in the woods and things like that. But what happens often is you can actually turn it on its end as an illusion. And if you've watched Toy Story or any Pixar film, it's literally what they're doing in those films, and why it makes things look so dimensional, is that you create a value range that goes deeper and turns faster. And it uses the illusion of your eye to actually make it feel more dimensional in front of you. And so it's kind of like you're using that concept, but it's so hard to grasp that you literally have to feel it instead of make it. So it's kind of like when you're being trained on to do it, it's almost like people are showing you the door, but it's one of the things that you have to walk through and see for yourself. But in its simplest form, it's just manipulating shapes through value, you know. So it sounds easy, but it's just like golf sounding easy, that you just, it's 3 hits to the hole, you know. It's like a simple concept, but it takes a long time to train your mind on how to do it.
How long did it take for you to like understand all of this and get it?
It took literally day in and day out, about 3 months of like 9 to 5 drawing for 5 days a week, you know. And now in the afternoons I was drawing figure, and where I learned this was at Grand Central Atelier. But it definitely took about that long, and really kind of reminds me of like those magic eye things that you used to have growing up, at least my era. I'm kind of dating my age here, but where you kind of cross your eyes a little bit, and it would make this like 3-dimensional object come to life off the page. Look up magic eye like on the internet. Hopefully you'll find the right thing and not something weird, but but go there and and look at what I'm talking about. And basically, it's the same idea that like one day you'll be just drawing and it just isn't making sense, and all of a sudden you just feel the whole thing kind of go back into space and kind of goes. You're like, oh, and you start like drawing and you don't want to look away because you feel like you'll lose it if you look away, you know. So, but it's you do like slightly lose it, but then you get it back, and then you lose it again, and then like it's a little bit easier the next time, and the next time it gets easier and easier, and before long it's kind of like you can't not see that way. Boy, that's because I've been talking. I've been like stuck on this one little flower. It's kind of like when I go to the grocery store and I'm on the phone, I'll just like stare at a bag of Cheetos the whole time, just like on the phone for an hour, and I'll be like, "You guys, I gotta go because I'm not getting any shopping done."
Alex, Natal wants to know, what color did you use in your background? It looks so luminous.
Oh, just the background? It's the background is just, it was a plain white canvas, and then with terp and raw umber just rubbed it on there. So I actually have not painted the background except for just the initial wash.
So many little truths to these flowers. You try to like mimic.
Ivana said, I just found a science supply store somewhat near me, and they have about 4 different kinds of ACP panels. Can you tell me more about the kind of panels to buy?
That's great. Congratulations, you've taken your first step to a larger world. I would say what I typically get is a 3 millimeter. Is that right? 3 millimeter? That's what y'all get, right? Same thing?
I don't know.
And I'm pretty sure it's 3 millimeter thick, because you can get 6 millimeter, and it can be just really heavy. But 3 actually makes it a little bit more manageable unless you're making like a really large painting. And then I would say there's a thing called Alumilite that it's got a corrugated core, and it's great for really large paintings. You know, I've done several large commissions, and I've used Alumilite. The only problem with Alumilite is that you have to saw it with a handsaw. The other stuff you can cut with a box cutter. You just score it a couple of times and then you pop the edge. And the person, if you really want them to, they'll cut it for you to size, whatever size you want or need. So that's available to you as well. But that's exciting. The other thing you need is what Alex mentioned, is to go to Natural Pigment's website and get lead alkyd ground. If you don't want to use lead, that's fine. You can use a gesso, and all you do is you sand the surface. It's got a white film on it, and you just sand the surface, just score it. You don't have to get like all heavy and detailed with it. If you've gone through and you start seeing metal, you've gone too far. But and then you prime it just like you would prime a canvas to get ready to paint. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. Y'all think anything more?
No.
Well, I'm going to just state the obvious for all of the professional artists out there, but for those like me who didn't know anything before I came here, do not sand lead alkyd ground without
Yes.
wet sanding it. Just throwing that out there to the world. So you don't breathe all that stuff in.
Yep. Would not be no bueno for you.
There's a lot of like safety stuff that they don't even teach you in like regular undergrad at like a state college or whatever, that I'm like shocked. We
Yeah,
paint.
because you would just do it. Like,
Yeah.
nobody tells you.
Like I remember, well, this was like probably in high school, but I was painting in my room without like the windows open or anything with like turp. It's like nobody told me, don't, breathe all that in an enclosed space. So you gotta state the obvious. for
Yeah,
those
you were
who don't
young.
know. I was like 16. Oh
It was
no.
like turp from like Home Depot.
No, it was turp from Walmart.
Well, exactly.
But yeah,
like
even worse.
real turp that's gonna
Yeah.
That-
screw you up.
Yeah, really screw you up.
Because that was definitely what I was using.
Oh, that's brutal. But see, everybody is wiser now because of that.
Or less wise. Because we lost our brain cells. That's what keeps us foolish enough to keep doing this every day.
Mm.
A good alternative that isn't lead is Gamblin has like an oil ground that I guess is based, instead of like a lead white, is a titanium white or something. And it works very well. It just takes longer to dry.
Mm.
But I used to use that up until like 3 years ago.
Kristen, what's going through your brain right now as you're painting?
Somebody help. Um, well, I've kind of like established, obviously, like the drawing and kind of which flowers which. Now I'm just trying to, I'm not necessarily like modeling anything yet or making anything bringing anything to a finish. But I am almost like, I was always taught to go from general to specific. So I'm just going from flower to flower and just starting to kind of refine more, push the values closer to what I'm seeing, compress a little bit better. So I'm just like jumping from each one, and then it kind of goes in a cycle, and they become more and more refined. So I'm moving on to this guy. But yeah, I'm just like, I think I tend to start from like the blocks of color and just slowly build the shape. So it's almost like Lewis was saying, like finding the sphere, then from the sphere finding, the shapes within the sphere, then carving those little shapes into, separating them into groups, and yeah, just getting more specific, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's good.
Kristen, Vanya says, thank you for the safety tip. I actually have the oil ground and it does take a long time to dry.
Ooh, that's really good to know. Try in the future, if you want, you can try the lead oil alkyd ground. Alkyd ground makes it dry within 24 hours. And the regular lead ground, you're right, it can take a week or two to dry. But the lead alkyd ground, it really will help you speed up your process.
Mark asks, do you have a preference for the final surface texture when you prime and sand a panel?
I do, it doesn't mean that I don't want to experiment a lot, because I do. I like to experiment. But I have found something that I do enjoy, and I try to like stick close to it, and then every now and again, some of my smaller panels, I'll try something new. But I find that it really helps me to do that. The way I create my texture personally is I use a foam roller that you can buy at like just your local Lowe's or hardware store. And I use the foam roller to roll it on, and then I use like a large brush, like this white brush, and I just lightly drag it across the top, and I cross it, and it kind of creates a little bit of a variation in the texture, but it also kind of gives a touch of a linen texture, and it's sort of crosshatch, and the foam roller creates a little bit more variance as well in it. So it's the combination of those two things that I think create it to work.
I keep telling myself I'm gonna go buy a brush to like use to prime my panels, and then I always forget. So then I just use the spatula that we have on hand, because you can just wipe it off and reuse it. So it's not intentional, but I've been doing that a lot just because I've been lazy. And I don't know, the texture it creates is interesting. It's almost like a wall texture, like a spackled wall.
Yeah, the lead alkyd ground dries so fast. I feel like my texture is always different, and it's always like a frantic, like, and I'm trying to bat it down, but then it starts to like kind of bead up or something because it's drying as I'm doing it.
Yup.
And you can't sand it unless you're, you know, really careful about it. So I don't know if I should even tell you what I do, because it's gonna make your life harder. But I prefer a pretty smooth surface with just like a tiny bit of texture.
Are there any other floral painters you guys like? You've seen their stuff that inspires y'all?
I've only seen that one painting by, is it Dennis Miller Bunker? Is that how you say it? With the little rose or whatever it is. And he did it very well. I haven't seen any others by him, but I probably should look up some more. But yeah.
Yeah, with flower painters, they're mostly all contemporary, like Richard Schmid and Michael's Flowers. But yeah, besides for Phantom Tour and then that one Thayer painting, and then like a couple Dennis Miller Bunkers, I'm not sure of many.
Kristen, JC asks, you seem to keep a really nice light impression all together with clean application of color. Would you mind elaborating on how you approach color? Munsell, complementaries, etc.
I don't know anything about the Munsell system, so I'm just going to throw that out there. I am definitely still a student, so I'm learning. But when I first came here, I definitely did what Alex described in the beginning, and I still tend to do it, where I just like contrasted everything and made everything really chromatic, and then everything didn't have this overall sense of harmony to it. And And so what I've been learning to do is to kind of keep a formula with each, at least with flowers, with each of my flowers. So like for the white one, I tried to like I pay attention also to like what the light source is. So is it cool or is it warm? And then keep that in that little range. So like if the light is warm, keep all of the lights warm and then like transition into, you know, cools and neutrals. But learning a lot of working with complements and so like for the white one, you know, doing yellows in the light and then shifting more towards the violets in the shadows has helped. I think just like having a formula in that way helps me not to make it kind of like pixely where I'm trying to find the little colors in each spot, but just kind of trust the formula and then shift once that's kind of like established. So yeah, and then also remembering, actually Alex said this the other day and it really helped me to remember that each object, or in this case flower, has like a local color, and remembering to keep that local color kind of within the colors that you're mixing. So you're not going to just like put straight blue out of the tube onto this flower. Like you want to make sure it's incorporated in the local color of the flower. So if it's a white flower, adding white or, you know, orange or whatever. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Good answer.
But again, I'm still learning, so thank you for the compliment.
Vicky asks, what do you all think of Michael Harding Genuine Chinese Vermilion? I got some and love it, but I read somewhere that it can have problems. Do you use it, and do you have any knowledge about its staying ability?
The only one I know who uses vermilion here is Louis.
Yep, I use vermilion. I don't use the Chinese vermilion from Michael Harding. I use Natural Pigments Rublev, and it's awesome. I love it. But and I'm not sure about the Chinese vermilion. I know that some vermilions have a tendency to be fugitive. And for those who don't know what that means, basically it just means that they have a tendency to fade. So, and I think that it's because it is a particular different type of vermilion, but if it's true vermilion, at least from what I've heard from Georgia Hanlon, is that who I get a lot of my understanding about the properties of paint, is that it's fine if it is, it will not be fugitive. But the color is just so beautiful. When you mix it, the tinting power is not too strong, it's not too weak, it just is right in the middle. It mixes so well with other colors. So I highly recommend it. But I don't know much about Michael Harding's. Should look into that so that I can answer that well. How's everybody doing?
Good.
My body's saying take a break.
Yeah? You want to take a break or are we good?
No, I don't mean you guys take a break.
There's about an hour left till 9.
Ah! Carry me through.
How are you thinking about gesture and edges at this point, and how does that define the space to everybody?
Did you say gesture?
Yeah, define, what was it again? What was the question?
How are you thinking about gesture and edges at this point, and how does that define the space?
Yeah, in this scenario, my intent is to keep my edges very loose while I continue to like push the painting. And then the gesture is really the movement that I'm trying to create through the piece. So I just found that I like this sort of like undulation that happens in the painting a lot. And so that is what I've decided that's going to be the thing I'm going to kind of push for through this painting. And it's one of those things where I might have been overly ambitious. It's a lot of flowers to try to push in 3 hours, you know. And we can go longer if everybody wants to, who knows, you know, but just saying. My edges I try to keep sort of soft and understated, and then like I continue to state them more as I continue to move along. Anybody else?
When a gesture, I'm not exactly sure, but when I'm painting flowers, even not alla prima, I tend to try and get the edges correct, like in the first go. Like I'm just trying to like kind of manipulate my brush to get a certain kind of edge quality. And a lot of it is kind of sharp up against what it's touching because, I don't know, when I think of flowers, it's just all these like paper thin edges touching everything. And then you just you can get a really nice sense of softness even with the sharpness when like the values are similar.
Gizeresa says, what kind of lighting are you using in the studio?
We are using film lights made by Aperture, is the name of the company. And this one is D300, I think, or D300i or something like that. And it just gives you really great light. I use it to paint under a lot. Awfully quiet today.
So with about like an hour left, what are you guys thinking about as you guys are trying to fit stuff in? Like, what are you most focused on?
Trying to make a flower look like a flower.
I don't expect myself to finish, so I'm just trying to have fun. I don't know. Just keep working each individual flower and see how far it takes me.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing the same thing, just like keeping the same pace, and whenever it ends, it ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is, gosh, just so much fun. It's kind of one of those things where I'm like, I wish I had more time. There's so many beautiful things going on here. We should make this like a, not this one, but like one in the future, like an oil painting from life where it's multiple days. And we just like focus on a subject matter like this. Or painting from life marathon where it's like 10 hours.
Oh, yeah. What are those things in college where it's like a dance marathon to like raise money? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
We'll do that. We'll do a painting marathon fundraiser.
I'm cool with that. We actually are considering doing that for like, you know, scholarship stuff and, you know, for interns and things where we, YouTube basically has this thing called a super chat where we'll do like one night where the paintings, we actually considered doing it for this, where my painting or whoever's paintings will be donated for the purpose of scholarship, and make it a marathon. And so people can tip through the chat system. Everybody out there, tell us what you think of that idea. So we might do it. Would you donate for the education of some poor starving artist who wants to join East Oak Studio?
Please.
Please.
You're going to start that up right when I'm leaving.
I know. Like, really?
I
Seriously?
see how it is.
Mm-hmm. Kristen and Caroline and Divya are the guinea pigs. They've like gotten all the knocks for the future kids to learn what to do.
It's okay. I'll take one for the team.
I really want to work on this guy too over here. It's kind of like, I want to work on this one. I want to work on this one.
Literally me in every painting. I am undisciplined.
Down here all night tonight working on this.
Mark says, talking about painting for long hours, have any of you ever found yourselves painting through the whole night?
That's funny.
Yep. I've done it, but it's been a very long time since I've done it. I did it in New York. I had to make a deadline for a portrait. And lately I feel like I've been pulling all-nighters, but it isn't for art. But definitely when I was younger and had the energy to. As I've gotten older, I'm not quite as spry and be like, I'll get done tomorrow.
That was a big thing in college, was like people pulling all-nighters working on art, and personally, I think it just makes for more mistakes in your art if you're just tired and trying to push through. You know, you want to have a fresh mind when you're painting.
Yep.
But if you gotta do it, then you gotta do it. But I almost would rather like get some amount of sleep and then like paint than none.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, the one semester I was in college, I was the kid in the Art Foundation's building at 3 a.m. Because if you got in before like midnight, you could stay all night.
Yep. Yep. I've definitely pulled many late nights in the art department because of that very reason. As long as you were in, you could stay in.
mm-hmm.
But and you just like be there till the janitors got there.
It's also kind of like young introvert artist's dream.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I get this whole art building to myself.
Yeah.
And I was a super night owl. When I first started working on, or when I started working on my first solo show with Arcadia, I was definitely pulling a lot more all-nighters.
Yeah, you were. I remember.
That was, well, it was fun. But not fun enough now.
Yeah.
Everyone knows here by now I can't stay up past 9 before my eyes start doing the droopy.
Doing the old droop.
Mm-hmm.
She gets these like dreamy Hollywood eyes where she just like looks down. And that all of us know Kristen's ready for bed.
It's like 9 o'clock.
Yeah. We have a code word in our house called avocado, which basically means I'm out, guys. I got to go to bed.
Which everybody knows the code word, so I don't know what use it actually is for being a code word.
Yeah, that's funny. Code word for, I don't know, guest. But now the whole world knows.
Yep.
Avocado.
Avocado. Hey, maybe it'll trend.
Hashtag
And all of a
avocado.
sudden we'll see people saying it all the time, and we're like, see, we started it, and we have documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce asks, when you first start gaining traction, how do you balance your own work with commissions?
I don't know if I'm like the right person to ask, because I don't know if I do a very good job of balancing my own work and commissions. I do about 3 paintings of my own a year, and that would be a success. But I would say that it's a discipline thing, that you have to say no and allow for yourself to force yourself to have the time to do the personal things. And this is a lesson that I can learn myself. So I'm just preaching to myself at the moment. But, you know, I think y'all would probably be better examples of how to navigate that. So y'all speak up.
Actually, Caroline would be somebody to answer that. She's been on the commission roll.
She has been on a commission roll.
I haven't been on the balancing it roll though.
Yeah, I just say no to every commission.
That's Alex's motto. Works pretty well for him, so
Not
all
gonna
right, kids, listen up.
Well, Kristen, I feel like you're really good at doing this right now.
Well, people are asking me to paint things that I want to paint. So it's kind of like, well, I would have painted something like that anyway. So I think when somebody requests a painting that I would have been interested in painting if I didn't even have that commission, I say yes, because then I can add it to my portfolio, and it's still something I'm like excited to paint, and I'm excited to learn while painting. But if it's something that I never would have picked the subject matter, or you know, somebody's little schnauzer or something, I don't know. Unless you like position it in a way that's really poetic, which is totally doable. Yeah, I just try to like paint what kind of goes with where I'm at in my portfolio right now. But yeah, I don't know. We're all figuring it out.
And to keep in mind, you know, there are artists out there that we admire that did do commission work, and we go and look at their commission work. So like you can, if you're capable and you force yourself, you can find your liberties even in your commission work to create poetry. And I'm a firm believer in that. I don't know how successful I am at it, but I most certainly believe that it is doable. And I mean, if you like John Singer Sargent's work, then or William Bouguereau, and I know there's a lot of people that don't, but if you like that work, I mean, those people basically, I think William Bouguereau only did like 3 non-commissioned paintings. So,
I mean, the majority of Rembrandt paintings were commissioned.
yeah, that's right.
What people commissioned then versus what they commission now is
Yeah, that's true
a bit
too.
different.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking about
I think
Bouguereau, Rembrandt.
that's a smart.
'Cause I'm pretty sure all Caravaggio's were like commissions for cathedrals and stuff like that.
That's true. There were a lot more of those kinds of. This was their form of television, so they were being commissioned to do a lot more things that were different. It's a good point.
But yeah, John Singer Sargent, every painting I look at of his that I love, they're all commissions of just like portraiture. So definitely do it. I think I need to take a break for a second.
Oh, my tummy is rumbling. I hope the mic got that.
Oh yeah.
Her
Well,
big
have a good
debut.
evening. But this is her first, debut on camera.
Yeah.
Hard behind the scenes this whole evening. All right, we'll see you
Thank
tomorrow
you.
or the next day.
Goodbye.
Sweet Caroline.
Sweet Caroline. Oh.
Something that she particularly does not like.
Once you realize you're back on camera,
Oh.
singing.
Hey, everyone. Just singing.
Just an easygoing bunch.
So Miguel Martinez asks, can you guys think of your favorite Bouguereau painting?
Okay. I don't know the title of it, but there's one where like these angels are carrying what I think is a wounded or dead woman. I'd have to show a picture. I have no idea. But some angels are carrying a dead woman, and it's pretty awesome. But I have no idea what the actual story is. That's the one thing about me and old paintings like that. It has nothing to do with the story. It's just all has to do with how beautiful I think it is. We should probably know more about what's actually happening.
Honestly, I love his self-portrait a lot. I think that's pretty awesome. But I know he's done like a lot more epic masterpieces than his self-portrait, but there's something about it I like a lot. Self-portraits are hard, and I think that, it's hard to pull them off really well.
I really wanted to say something like, I don't know, one of the underground paintings, but honestly, my favorite is the one with the satyr and the nymphs or whatever. That's like so incredible, and the value compression in that, and the composition, it's just very masterful. Lots to learn from it.
They had that one in the Met when I was at GCA on loan. It was awesome to go see it in person. Had its own room to itself.
Wow.
trying to think. I'm like drawing a complete blank on some of my favorite works of his. What's the one that actually was here in Carolina with the cherub that's piercing, trying to throw the arrow into her and she's pushing him off? You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
That one.
that's Cupid.
Yeah, that one is like just the anatomy of when like how she's pushing against the rib cage of the cherub looks so real, like the separation of the rib cage to the body just is like, oh, that's awesome.
There was Bouguereau's show that was like going around. I didn't get to see it, but there was like this little like beggar girl or something.
Oh,
But she's kind of like all in shadow, and then it's all backlit behind her.
Yep.
And the value compression on that is just insane.
That one's awesome.
Tina Fagarali says, Nymphs and Satire by Bouguereau is actually at the Clark Institute now, I believe. I'm going to see it in person in 2 weeks.
It's a good one.
And Christopher Barakla says, stunning paintings, crazy the amount of time as well. Would love for you guys to stay on.
Is that what he means?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it! Marathon tonight!
It'll be late night with Louie. I'll be in bed sleeping.
Yeah. Kristen will be avocadoed out.
Yup.
Late night with Louie.
Let's do it, Alexico. You and me, buddy.
We're just like hunched over, leaning on
There's like one viewer.
Yeah, exactly. They have like this TV show when I was playing poker a lot. It's called Late Night. It's like Poker After Dark is what it was called. It was like all the night owls that were just like the enthusiasts that were insomniatic. They'd just be like watching the show of guys just shooting the breeze while playing.
Oh my gosh.
And, yeah. I was totally that guy. Watching them.
Let's see. Christine Long says, Alex, will you have a focal point flower in your painting that you might develop more fully than the others?
Probably. Like, if I'm just making a flower painting in general, for this one I won't have enough time, but especially for Alla Prima, something like this, if I did have enough time, I would probably just pick a few that were like kind of coming forward and really bring those to life and let the other stuff just kind of stay like kind of shapes of color. So yeah, I think I would.
Andrea A says, what are some of your favorite art museums?
I'll tell you, my favorite art museum in New York is the Frick. The Frick Museum is unbelievable. And I just feel like it's the best kept secret that normal people that don't live in New York don't just really know much about. It's this wealthy steel tycoon. I think William Frick was his name. And he basically was a huge art lover and was a collector. And that was just like his main passion. He was one of the few people that would just go to Europe and acquired all of the greatest 19th century painters of the time. And just has the most epic collection. So if you're in New York, do yourself a service and go to the Frick Museum. It is freaking awesome.
Freaking A. honestly have not been to enough art museums.
Me neither.
Like, it's pretty sad. The last time I was at the Met, I don't even think I knew who, like, Bastien Lepage was. I thought the painting was awesome, but I had no idea who he was.
I haven't even been to the local museum here.
What?
What?
Of course, it's been interesting times too, so I wouldn't hold it against you. But you should go. It's really great. They have that Bouguereau I'm talking about there.
I don't know if it's there anymore, unless you've been recently.
No, you're right. They took it down. I don't know if it's in archives or if it's on loan but I think they own it, don't they?
I don't know. Someone, I mean, this was like a year ago or something, after it left, took a picture of it in a museum in California.
Oh, wow. Maybe they sold it.
Yeah,
No.
I don't know what.
Oh, I do know that there's like 2, maybe 3 replicas of that painting, too. That particular painting. I'm not sure, because I know that he often did that, where he would make a couple, and one of them was for like the engravers for making them into prints, like etchings. And then the other one was to go to like the commissioner, and then the third one was to go to something else. So,
How the hell?
yeah,
Able to do that?
yeah. So if you go and look in the book, the William Bouguereau book that we have, it talks about where the multiple ones are, and there's several paintings he did that for. I don't remember which ones though.
This is a live audience question.
From the husband of the florist, wondering if it's more difficult to paint something that's beautiful or something that's ugly.
That's awesome. So were you on the mic for that? Okay, perfect. That is a fantastic question. A clever question too, I think. I'll say my clever answer to that question is that I think it is more difficult to paint an ugly thing to be beautiful. That is really hard. I think about one of the things I think about, Michael would always say, who's my partner for y'all that don't know, he would say, it's not what you paint, but how you paint it. And that's just always stuck with me because I think that there's a lot of truth in it. But one of the paintings I love the most of his work is a painting of a pile of sticks. And it's just a pile of sticks, but there's something very truthful in how he painted it that sticks with me. Oh, sticks with me. I'm just all about the puns tonight. Not even a dad, and I've got dad jokes. The other painting I think of a lot is that a guy named Odd Nerdrum did a painting of a brick, and it's just like this inanimate object, but the way he painted it just is pretty sick, and I love that painting. So I would have to say it is more difficult to paint something ugly to be beautiful. But that's just a clever answer. I'm sure that if I thought about it more, there's a more insightful answer. Guys, y'all want to take a stab at that?
I would agree with that. And then also, like, when I think of someone who tried to paint things to make them ugly, unless I'm just totally giving them a bad, like, not a compliment right now, it's like Freud. It's like, I feel like his goal was to make it ugly.
Yeah.
Paint it ugly. And to me, that seems a bit easier. If you're trying to paint it ugly, but yes, if you're trying to paint something ugly and make it beautiful, very challenging.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But it's almost like not more rewarding, but it is very rewarding to see, like you were saying, like, oh, okay, I painted this brick, but I made it like the best looking brick you've
Yeah.
ever seen. Like there's something about that that is, honestly, that's something I really want to pursue in my work and kind of like investigate further because I love that. Because that's really life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I will say, to add to that question though, it is particularly difficult to try to capture someone's beauty who is like incredibly beautiful, because it's just, it's a hard thing to do. Because sometimes we don't know what makes things beautiful. And I think this goes across the board of even the things that are ugly, making them feel beautiful or truthful. I think the closer you can get to the truthfulness of the like essence of the thing, the closer you get to understanding its beauty. To get to wax philosophically, but you know, because I think that's what we try to do, is we try to like seek a certain understanding to a flower that doesn't feel cliched or contrived, but actually has a sense of truthfulness to the thing we're seeing. But it's a translation. It's using this like limited thing to create that feeling or that illusion. It's sometimes hard, really, really difficult to not make something feel saccharine that is quite beautiful in its essence, and for it to feel truthful. So it's the same level of difficulty, in my opinion.
Good answer.
Good answer. I've had a lot of fun working on this little guy back here in the corner.
Millie Guthrie asks, any advice to start exposing and selling figurative art? When do you know that you are ready?
It's like you kind of have to let. Well, it depends. If you're like on social media and all that, you kind of have to read your audience, and because like my figurative stuff, I wasn't ready as soon as my still life stuff was. But once it like started getting ready, that's when people started reaching out to me and wanting it, and like wanting to show it in their galleries and stuff. So it's like other people let you know when it's good enough. But that's, I don't know if I like that answer.
I mean, I guess that's like what happened to me. Like, I don't know. You just start making the work, and I don't know. People follow you, and then, yeah. I honestly don't have an answer for that except just putting yourself out there online. I never have gone to like a physical gallery or anything and shown my work in person.
Yeah, it's funny how different the world, like getting your art represented before the internet.
Yeah, it was a different animal at that point.
Yeah, like I would have no idea. I remember I watched some Cesar Santos thing, and he's talking about how he wanted this gallery to represent his work. So he like went in and was like, oh, I need to take a business meeting. Can I leave this here? And it was his painting. And he just, and they were like, yeah, okay, just set it down. He'll be like, I'll be back in an hour. And he just went and sat in a coffee shop and like got them so they would see his painting.
That's funny.
I'm like, you clever bastard. And then they asked if they could show it when he came back.
That's awesome. I never heard that story. That's a great story.
I'm trying to remember what video. Probably one of his YouTube things.
Well, don't have it on the main program.
I don't know what it's doing.
Oh, wow. Okay, hold on. That's strange. Well, everybody, hold on just a second. We have a glitch in the system. We'll be back in a second.
Yeah, good.
It's such a
doing it,
pleasure. So glad y'all came. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll I'm sure all of these will be posted after it's all said and done.
Okay, this is what happens.
Have fun at the beach.
Oh, thank you so much.
Why?
We're looking forward to
I
it.
can't. Okay, this fly. Oh.
Take
See
care.
ya.
Yes. Does that work?
Yes. Sorry everyone about that. That was just a bit of a glitch in the system, but we're back.
We are back in action.
And speaking about Cesar Santos before, Kristen, you met him briefly, right?
Yeah, so Cesar and I'm Cuban. And so my Cuban father was like, well, that means that if I reach out to him, he must answer me because we're like, you know, blood brothers or whatever. I'm like, okay, Dad, yeah. So he emailed him, and this is way back in, you know, when I was in college and everything and still finding my way in my career. And he wrote something in Spanish, and I don't know, he replied, and he was like, yeah, come on down to Miami and you can have a studio visit. And he's like, typically we don't do this type of thing, but I felt a real strong bond to you, brother. And I'm like, wow, Dad, something about the Cuban bond. So anyways, we went down to Miami, and he graciously invited us into his home, and we got to see all of his paintings. He has a lot of art in his home and studio. So that was really cool. It was like almost going to like a little museum. And then we spent like 3 hours just sitting at the table talking about, at the time I wasn't sure if I wanted to do an atelier or what I wanted to do after graduation. So he was giving me some advice, and yeah, he's very insightful and has a lot of really good advice. And he did say, which a lot of people have told me here, he's like, you have got to just treat it like a full-time job and paint all the time. And so, yeah, it really inspired me after college with that advice in mind to treat it as a job. But yeah, he's really cool, super down to earth, and yeah, he's the same around anyone, and that's what I really like. So, yeah, pretty cool guy.
Also, just wanted to tell everyone there's about 5 minutes left.
I've already done it once, but I'm going to do it again.
Millie Guthrie says, thank you guys, great paintings and great conversation.
Really for joining us.
Thank you.
This really has been a lot of fun.
It's actually more like 2 minutes on the clock. It's like a scary movie.
Yep.
I refrain right now to be like no diva.
I'd like to say that everyone's painting looks very exquisitely beautiful tonight.
Is that from you?
This is from Divya.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Divya.
Exquisitely beautiful.
Vicky Sullivan from Australia says, thanks guys, enjoyed painting and listening here in Australia.
That's awesome. Yes, in
Yeah.
Australia. Hopefully we'll join you in Australia sometime in the future.
That'd be fun.
Divya and you will show us around.
And Alex will show you some sights.
Mhm.
Show you all the Australian skate parks I found.
And your favorite coffee shop?
Yes. What was it called?
It's like
George's
yes, my favorite coffee shop.
George's
what was
or
it?
something.
George Stephanopoulos? What?
Your favorite coffee shop like ever?
Yep,
Wow.
it was good. They got good coffee in Australia.
That's kind of awesome. We should fly to Australia to get a cup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Just
we're
for that
ready.
reason, though.
You won't.
Vicky said, you are most welcome. I live near where Arthur Streeton painted. And I actually would like to say that that is the landscape painter, Alex, we saw in New South Wales. You know, the plein air painter? I think Arthur Streeton lives in Adelaide, but I probably am wrong. Maybe Adelaide. You might have to clarify that for me, Vicky. And Lisa says, also beautiful. This has been awesome. Hope you do it again.
Awesome. Yeah, we might do another floral painting if it seems that people are really enjoyed it. So.
And it is 9 o'clock.
Alrighty, well, I will send this off, and then I might keep working on it for a little bit. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm going to just kind of bob and weave through Alex and Kristen. We have so many different announcements that are going on each month. We're at the end of the month, we're releasing Mackenzie Swanson's her figurative painting. And we are also releasing Grace DeVito's doing a live stream on how to paint a still life, and I think it's going to be cotton. So that will be the third week of May, and also we will be doing another painting from life next month as well. We've got a great lineup of artists that are going to be coming in. You can check out our calendar, and if you join our subscribe to our email list or sign up for our email list, we will make these announcements at different times for you. We always appreciate y'all. We appreciate all the comments and questions that y'all have. We look forward to the next time, and until then, happy painting.